Have you ever been there? You're reading an English article, maybe watching a movie, and you understand everything just fine. But then the moment comes when you need to actually speak, and nothing. Your mind just goes blank, or maybe the words sort of crawl out really slowly, awkwardly, and you just don't sound confident at all. It's incredibly frustrating. And if that sounds familiar, you are definitely in the right place today. In this deep dive, we're unpacking something powerful, something that's often overlooked when we talk about speaking English fluently. It's not just about knowing grammar rules or, memorizing endless vocabulary lists. It's actually fundamentally about training your brain and your mouth, getting them to work together in sync. Our mission today is really to cut through all the noise and give you some clear, actionable strategies from our sources. We want to help you connect your thoughts directly to your speech. Think of it as a shortcut, maybe, to understanding the precise how you can achieve that fluency you're looking for. So yeah, let's dive into this. It's a really common challenge, isn't it? So many English learners face this exact thing.
It is interesting, yeah, because we often treat language learning as this purely mental thing, right? Study the rules, memorize words. But true fluency shows us that the mental and the physical sides are really deeply intertwined. So the real question becomes, how do we actually bridge that gap? Our sources point out that the problem isn't usually a lack of knowledge. It's more about a disconnect in how we apply that knowledge when we need it, like right now.
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. Our sources pinpoint this sort of invisible barrier many learners hit. They call it the translation loop.
Mm.
So you're not freezing up because you've suddenly forgotten a word or a grammar rule. It's because your brain is caught in this really inefficient cycle. You think in your native language first, then you try to translate that thought word for word into English, and then finally you try to speak it. And this whole process, as our sources describe it, it's just slow, it's confusing, and honestly, it's incredibly frustrating. It sounds like trying to have a conversation over a really bad internet connection.
Exactly. That translation loop is the silent culprit. It's constantly slowing you down. To speak fluently, you really need to train your brain to think directly in English. You've got to bypass that translation step altogether. I mean, even if you have all the vocabulary, all the grammar stored away in your memory, if your brain is always running this background translation program, well, that information just can't get to your mouth fast enough for a natural conversation.
Okay, so if this translation habit is the villain here, what are the practical things we can do? The everyday methods to actually train our brains to think in English. It sounds like a huge task, but the good news is the sources give us some surprisingly simple ways to start.
Absolutely. And the first key really is to start small. Just with simple thoughts from your daily life. You don't need to be composing like elaborate philosophical arguments in your head. Just begin with short, simple ideas connected to what you're doing. Imagine making breakfast. Instead of just doing it, you silently narrate, I'm making coffee, the water's boiling now, okay, pouring it into my cup. Or maybe you step outside. The sky is cloudy, I think it might rain soon. These tiny internal narratives, they train your brain to use English as the first response, not as a translation job.
That's so clever. It's like you're building this little English muscle in your brain without even feeling like you're studying.
Right.
What else? What else helps make English the default?
Another fantastic method is using labels, sticky notes, to build instant vocabulary connections. Just grab some sticky notes and label things around your home or your office with their English names. Your mirror, the door, refrigerator, your phone. This forces your brain to connect the English word directly with the object, the image, completely bypassing your native language. Over time, that direct link becomes automatic. You see mirror, you think mirror.
I get it. So it's not just learning a word from a list, it's this direct mental picture with the English label stuck right on it. I can see how that just skips the translation step immediately.
Precisely. And building on that, you want to try and create a personal English environment. And look, you don't need to move abroad to do this. Change your phone settings, your app settings to English. Watch short videos or bits of series in English. Even just 10 minutes a day makes a difference. Read simple blogs or news headlines designed for learners. Listen to English music or podcasts, maybe while you're doing chores or commuting. The more your brain just hears and interacts with English, the more comfortable it gets and the more automatic its responses become. It's about letting English become part of the background hum of your life.
So making it sort of ambient. Yeah, not this separate thing you have to sit down and formally study.
Yeah.
That feels much more natural, much more sustainable too.
It truly is. And writing actually also plays a crucial role here in training your brain to think directly in English. Try keeping a daily journal. Doesn't have to be long, even just 3 or 4 lines a day. Something simple like, today I woke up at 7, made coffee, went to work, felt tired but okay. Doing this trains your brain to form and organize thoughts directly in English, and it has a side benefit. It helps you spot gaps in your vocabulary, and maybe more importantly, it lets you see your actual progress over time.
Right, like a silent conversation with yourself, but actually on paper.
Yeah.
That's a very practical way to build that thinking habit. What about visual learners? Any specific tips for them in the sources?
Yeah, for visual learners, our sources suggest combining visual thinking with English words. So you picture an object or an action, and then you mentally say the English word for it. For instance, if you're thinking about dinner, you picture your plate, the food, and mentally say, I'm eating chicken and rice. That kind of dual approach really helps lock it into memory. Now, these methods, they might feel a bit slow, maybe even a little uncomfortable at first.
I can imagine. It's like starting a new workout routine, right? Everything feels a bit stiff, maybe awkward.
Exactly the analogy our sources use. Spot on. At first, the muscles are weak, it feels awkward. But if you stick with it, that consistent repetition builds strength. As you consistently practice thinking in English every day, even in these short bursts, you'll start to notice that powerful shift. You're no longer translating, you're no longer getting stuck. You're just thinking, and then speaking follows. That's the first huge step towards real fluency.
Okay, so our brains are getting a workout, building up that English memory bank. Now, a question lots of English learners ask is, how can I speak more naturally without constantly having to memorize grammar rules? They often expect the answer to be, more textbooks, more grammar exercises. But the answer, according to these sources, is actually something quite surprising and often overlooked.
Yes. A key insight from the sources is the power of the humble graded reader. Now, what are these? They're basically specially designed books or stories for English learners. They use a limited vocabulary set and simpler sentence patterns, and they're tailored to different proficiency levels. And it's really crucial to understand these are not just children's books. They are carefully designed tools for language growth. They let you build confidence step by step with material that's actually comprehensible, just right for your current level.
Okay, graded readers. So why exactly do these seemingly simple books help you speak better? It feels a little counterintuitive, reading, helping speaking.
Well, the reason it works so well is that reading these graded stories is all about building your brain's English memory. It's pattern recognition, really. When you repeatedly see natural sentences like, she walked to the store, or he was hungry, so he made a sandwich, your brain automatically starts recognizing these common patterns. Then, when you want to express a similar idea, your brain already has the structure ready to go. You don't have to build it from scratch, word by word. That's a huge leap towards fluency producing language naturally, not forcing it.
So it's almost like you're preloading these common sentence structures into your brain, making them ready for instant recall. That's actually fascinating when you put it like that.
Precisely. And what's also really powerful is how stories engage emotion and build meaning. Our brains are wired to remember information better when it's connected to feelings. When you follow a character through a story, you experience their joy, their fear, whatever it is, and the words and expressions linked to those emotions, they just stick much better. You read something like, she was afraid, the lightning flashed, the room was dark. That connects those words, afraid, flashed, dark to a visceral feeling, making them much more available later when you want to express something similar yourself.
That makes perfect sense. It's like giving your brain a little hook to hang the vocabulary on. And you also mentioned learning grammar without explicitly studying it. That sounds like the dream for many learners.
It really is one of the biggest benefits, yeah. As you read sentences over and over, like, he didn't go to school yesterday, or did you like the movie? I heard your brain just implicitly absorbs how things like tenses, questions, and other structures are formed. You're not sitting there memorizing rules. You're seeing real-world examples again and again. This gradually builds a kind of mental grammar engine inside you. You start to develop a feel for what sounds right in English.
Okay, so how should listeners actually use these graded readers effectively? Is there a practical routine the sources recommend?
Yeah, our sources suggest a few key steps. First, and this is important, choose the right level. You should understand about 90–95% of the words. The aim is comfort and flow, not constant dictionary checking. Read in short sessions, even just 10–15 minutes a day is great. Focus on actually enjoying the story. And crucially, try reading out loud sometimes. This is key for connecting the reading to speaking, helping your pronunciation and rhythm. Also, don't just focus on single words. Highlight useful phrases, things like, I don't know what to say, or it's time to go, and actually practice saying them aloud.
That read out loud sometimes and highlight phrases, advice, sounds particularly powerful for bridging that reading to speaking gap. And I imagine retelling the story helps too.
Oh, absolutely. Probably the most powerful brain-mouth training exercise you can do with graded readers is retelling the story or chapter in your own words. When you finish a section, just close the book and try to explain what happened in simple English. It forces you to actively use the language you've just absorbed. You can find these readers from publishers like Oxford Bookworms, Penguin Readers, Cambridge English Readers, Macmillan, or even digital apps like Billingwrap or LinkU have them. The key really is consistency. Making reading a daily habit, even if it's just a page or two. It consistently trains your brain, grows your vocabulary, makes grammar feel more natural, and boosts your confidence. All of that leads directly to smoother, faster speaking. Reading is truly integral to speaking well.
Okay, fantastic. So the brain's getting a serious workout building that internal English database. But here's a powerful truth, one many learners kind of forget. Speaking English fluently also requires, well, physical training. It's about more than just knowing the words in your head. It's about making your mouth, your lips, your tongue actually do the work of producing English sounds.
That's exactly right. English has unique sounds. It has stress patterns, rhythms that might just not exist in your native language. Your mouth, the lips, the tongue, even the vocal cords needs to learn new movements. It's very much like an athlete training their body or a musician training their fingers. If your mouth hesitates or stumbles, it's often not because you're a bad speaker, it's just that you're an untrained speaker in that specific way. Your brain might know what to say, but if your mouth isn't ready to produce the sounds quickly and clearly, you'll stumble.
Right. So where do we start with this physical mouth training? What are the first steps?
Well, you begin with the actual sounds of English, especially the ones that are commonly difficult for learners. Think about the T sound, like in think, or the B, or the difference between the short I in ship and the long E in sheep, or maybe that tricky English R sound. Our sources advise practicing these sounds slowly and clearly at first. Use a mirror, it really helps. Watch how your mouth moves and record yourself so you can compare your pronunciation to a native speaker's. It's all about repetition, building that muscle memory.
And imagine tongue twisters come into play here. They always seem like a fun, if sometimes frustrating way to train your mouth.
They do. Tongue twisters are fantastic. They're powerful tools for improving your clarity, your speed, and your overall control. You know the classics. She sells seashells by the seashore, or Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. The goal isn't necessarily perfect, lightning-fast repetition, but to make your mouth stronger, more flexible, ready for the real demands of speaking English. But honestly, the single most effective method, and one that needs no partner, is simply to speak aloud every single day. No excuses.
Speak aloud to yourself. I mean, that feels a bit odd, doesn't it? My cat may give me funny looks.
Your cat might. Mine certainly does. But trust the sources on this one. It's incredibly effective. Just narrate simple tasks as you do them. Okay, I'm cutting the tomatoes now. Now I'm boiling the rice, while you're cooking. The more your mouth physically produces English words and sentences, the more natural and automatic it becomes. Also, focus on building muscle memory with useful phrases, not just isolated words. Practice entire chunks like, "Can you help me, please?" or "I'm not sure about that." Repeat them, whisper them, say them normally, maybe even shout them or act them out. Confidence really grows from habit, from the physical act, not just from knowing the words in your head.
That makes so much sense. It's about building those automatic physical responses. But how do you know if you're actually improving? What about getting feedback if you're just talking to yourself?
That's a great question, the self-assessment piece. And the answer loops back to something we mentioned. Record yourself. Become your own coach. Choose a short paragraph, maybe from a graded reader. Record yourself reading it aloud. Then listen back critically. Compare it to a native speaker if you can find audio. Then try recording it again later. It might feel uncomfortable at first, listening to your own voice, but it's so powerful. It trains your ears and your mouth. It clearly shows you where you're making progress, and that's incredibly motivating. And here's a really crucial piece of advice from the sources. Don't wait until your English is perfect before you start speaking. Seriously, that day will never come for anyone. Fluency develops through speaking, through making mistakes, noticing them, and refining. Speaking is part of the learning process, not just the final result of it.
That's such an important mindset shift. Stop waiting for perfect. Start doing. Okay, so what would a practical daily mouth training routine look like for someone wanting to get started with this?
Well, the sources suggest a simple 10-15-minute routine could work wonders. Maybe start with 2-3 tongue twisters just to warm up. Then read a paragraph aloud from your graded reader. After that, spend a few minutes just speaking aloud about your day, your plans, anything. Then pick maybe 5 useful phrases and repeat each one 3 times. Finally, maybe record yourself saying a short dialogue or answering a simple question and listen back. This kind of consistent daily practice, even if it's short, will genuinely transform your physical speaking ability.
It really brings home that analogy. You wouldn't expect to play the guitar well without ever touching the strings, right? You simply can't speak English fluently without actually speaking English out loud again and again and again.
Okay.
So now you're training your brain to think in English. You're training your mouth to make the sounds. But how do you actually connect both of these skills, listening and speaking together at the same time, reacting instantly like native speakers do without thinking about it? This is where another really powerful technique comes in, something the sources highlight called shadowing.
Yes, shadowing. A key insight from the research is that shadowing is basically listening to a native speaker and repeating exactly what they say, but doing it at the same time, or just a tiny fraction of a second behind them. You literally become their shadow. This is different from just simple repetition where you listen, pause, then repeat. With shadowing, the key is the timing. You're trying to match their speed, their tone, their rhythm almost in real time. That's why our sources often call it real-time fluency training.
Wow, okay, so it's less about memorizing the words and much more about mimicking the music of the language, the rhythm and flow as it's actually happening. That sounds quite challenging.
It is, definitely. And that's precisely why it's so incredibly effective. Shadowing forces you to activate multiple skills all at once. You're doing intensive listening, continuous speaking, you're accessing your memory, and critically, you're copying pronunciation, stress, and intonation. It trains your brain and your mouth to work together under pressure, just like in a real conversation. It builds those instant connections we need.
How does someone actually start doing this effectively? Do you need special software or fancy equipment?
Not at all. It's very accessible. Our sources lay out a simple step-by-step approach. First, Choose short and clear audio. Start with just 1-2-minute clips. Things like English learning videos, slow news reports, or audiobooks are great. Second, just listen once without speaking. Get the general idea of what's being said. Use subtitles if they're available, especially at the beginning. Third, play the audio again, but this time you shadow. You repeat what the speaker is saying, trying your best to match their speed, tone, and pronunciation with as little delay as possible. Then, repeat this shadowing process maybe 3 or 4 times with the same short clip. You'll find your accuracy improves each time. And finally, it's a good idea to record yourself shadowing occasionally so you can compare how you sound to the original speaker.
That sounds manageable. And for those who might find it really tough at first, which I imagine many people would, are there any tips to make it a bit easier to get the hang of?
Definitely. The key is to start slow. Use audio that's specifically designed for beginners if you need to. And don't be afraid to use subtitles initially. You can phase them out later. Practice daily, but keep it short, maybe just 5 or 10 minutes. Consistency beats marathon sessions here. Oh, and a fun tip some polyglots recommend is to actually stand up or even walk around while you're shadowing. It can help with breath control and keep you more engaged. Good materials to use are things like the audio that comes with graded readers, short ESL podcasts, YouTube lessons where the speaker is clear, or even short movie or TV clips if they have accurate subtitles.
Okay, and how does shadowing specifically help with sounding more natural? Getting rid of that kind of flat or robotic tone that so many learners worry about. That seems like a huge benefit.
That's really where its true power lies, I think. So many learners focus only on getting the words right, but they forget about the music, the intonation. By actively copying the way a native speaker stresses certain words, where they pause, how their pitch rises and falls, you start to internalize those patterns yourself. You sound more expressive, more engaging, more confident. You learn automatically how to raise your tone for a question, how to emphasize the important words in a sentence, where to put those natural pauses. It makes you sound much more fluent, even if your grammar isn't absolutely perfect yet. It's the difference between just reading words off a page and actually performing them.
It makes me think of learning a musical instrument again. At first you play slowly, carefully, reading every single note. But with practice, your fingers just remember the melody, the rhythm, and you stop reading note by note. You just play the music. Shadowing seems to turn English from something you study into something you perform.
That's a perfect analogy, and the results, according to learners who do this consistently, are undeniable. They report speaking faster, having clearer pronunciation, feeling much more confident, and just developing a stronger intuitive feel for English. You can often see visible progress in just a few weeks. It helps you speak more automatically, understand native speakers better, and even think in English faster.
Okay, so we've covered training your brain to think in English, using graded readers for input and patterns, and shadowing to mimic native rhythm and flow. Now it's time to tackle something that, let's be honest, many learners are genuinely afraid of: speaking out loud, actively producing the language. But here's the truth, maybe the most important truth. You won't feel ready to speak until you actually start speaking. The readiness comes from the doing, not before it.
Exactly. Speaking is fundamentally a physical activity. It's like learning to drive a car. You can read the manual all day long, you can watch videos, you can think about it, but you can't actually get fluent at driving until you get behind the wheel and do it. Speaking aloud trains your mouth muscles, it builds your confidence, it moves English from that passive storage in your memory into active, usable speech, and it dramatically reduces that awful freezing sensation. It is all about practice, not about achieving perfection before you begin.
And that common excuse, but I have no one to practice with, that really gets blown out of the water here, doesn't it? Because the sources emphasize you don't actually need a partner to start.
Absolutely not. You don't need a partner to start speaking English aloud. Self-talk is one of the most powerful, accessible tools you have. Just narrate your day, like we discussed for thinking in English, but say it out loud. Okay, I'm making coffee now. The water is boiling. Use the mirror method. Stand in front of a mirror, make eye contact with yourself, and pretend you're talking to someone. Practice common phrases. Hi, how are you? Nice weather today. It feels silly at first, but it really builds confidence and reduces the fear factor. You can also talk through your plans or thoughts aloud. Right, I'm going to clean the kitchen this afternoon. This actively trains your brain to think and speak simultaneously. You can even try acting out both sides of simple conversations, like ordering coffee or asking for directions. Play both roles. It builds fluency for real-life daily situations.
I really like the idea of using prompts too, especially for those moments when your mind just goes blank and you think, what on earth do I talk about? That empty space can be really intimidating.
Yes, prompts are great for that. Describe your room in detail. Talk about what you ate for breakfast. Explain your usual weekend routine. Describe your favorite movie or book. Talk about your goals for learning English. Just pick one, maybe set a timer for 3-5 minutes, and speak nonstop. The goal isn't perfect grammar, it's just keeping the flow going, prioritizing continuity. And again, record yourself doing this sometimes. Pick a topic, record for 1-2 minutes. Listen back. What do you notice about your pronunciation, your speed, your hesitations, your confidence? Then try it again later and see how you've improved. It's instant feedback and great motivation.
And even if it feels a bit strange talking to your furniture or your pet, it clearly works those speaking muscles daily in a totally judgment-free zone.
It really does. Try to connect speaking practice to your existing routines. Maybe talk to yourself while you're cooking, walking, or just before you go to sleep. Make it a consistent, informal habit. And set a small, achievable daily speaking goal. Maybe just 2 minutes for beginners, perhaps 5-10 minutes for intermediate learners. You can even break it up throughout the day. And this brings up a crucial point again. Making mistakes is not a problem. It's a fundamental part of becoming fluent. If you find you're not making any errors, you're probably not pushing yourself enough, not speaking enough. Fluency grows by trying, messing up, noticing, adjusting, and trying again. Speak with confidence, even when you know you might be wrong.
It boils down to this, doesn't it? The fastest way to speak better English is simply to speak more English. Your own voice is your most powerful tool. Use it.
And as you continue training your brain and your mouth, speaking more and more, you'll start to notice another little secret, something fluent speakers often use without even realizing it. Automatic phrases.
Ah, yes, automatic phrases. So how do native speakers just say things, phrases like, how's it going? Or see you later, without seeming to think about each individual word? What's the magic behind that effortless flow?
Well, there's no real magic. It's just the power of repetition. Think about your own native language. Phrases like, how are you? Or thank you very much. They just roll off the tongue, right? Effortlessly. That's because you've said them thousands and thousands of times. By consciously repeating useful English phrases frequently, your mouth learns the rhythm, the pronunciation, the muscle memory, and your brain learns exactly when and how to use them naturally without needing to construct them word by word each time.
Okay, so what counts as a useful phrase that we should actually be practicing to get this kind of automaticity? What should learners focus on?
Useful phrases are typically simple, very frequent sentences or chunks of language used in everyday conversations. Think about greetings. Good morning. How are you doing? Nice to meet you. Or common questions for help. Can you help me, please? Excuse me, where is the bathroom? Expressing opinions or feelings. That sounds interesting. I'm not sure about that. I agree. Or making plans. Let's meet tomorrow. What time works for you? Learning these common chunks allows you to participate in conversations more smoothly and confidently, even if you don't know every single word needed to express a complex idea from scratch.
That makes sense. So how do we practice these effectively so they really become automatic, not just things we've memorized intellectually but can't produce quickly?
Our sources suggest several effective methods. Say the phrase aloud repeatedly, maybe 5 to 10 times. Start slowly, focusing on clear pronunciation, then gradually speed up. Try saying it with different emotions or tones: happy, questioning, serious. This makes it more flexible in your mind. Write the phrase down while saying it aloud. That combination engages different parts of your brain and reinforces the mouth connection. Practice using the phrase in slightly different situations by changing just one key word. For example, practice, "Can you help me, please?" Then, "Can you show me, please?" Then, "Can you tell me, please?" And yes, record yourself saying them to check your naturalness. You can also use flashcard apps like Anki or Quizlet to create digital flashcards with these phrases and review them daily. Some people even find it helpful to turn important phrases into daily mantras, like repeating, "I'm improving every day," to build both a positive mindset and the fluency habit.
Got it. So the incredible benefit here, the real payoff, is that your brain doesn't have to start from absolute zero every time you want to say something common. You can just pull up these prepackaged, ready-to-go phrases, and that frees up your mental energy to focus on the actual meaning you want to convey, on the flow of the conversation, on listening to the other person, and just generally feeling more confident. It makes speaking faster, easier, and much more natural sounding.
Precisely. It creates these essential shortcuts in your brain, leading directly to that smoother, more effortless flow you hear in fluent speakers. It's a key component.
Okay, so you've put in the work, you've trained your brain to think more directly in English, you've practiced with graded readers and shadowing, you've gotten comfortable speaking out loud, even to yourself, and you've started automating useful phrases. But real fluency, that truly smooth, confident communication we're all aiming for, that really happens when your brain and your mouth finally start working together seamlessly, almost automatically. It's all about the synergy between the two.
That's the final piece of the puzzle. Think of your brain as the computer's CPU. It has all the information, all the processing power, but think of your mouth as the keyboard. Your brain might have the perfect sentence ready, but if the keyboard, your mouth, isn't working properly, if it's slow or makes mistakes, you simply can't get the message out quickly or correctly. True fluency means having an instant high-speed connection between the brain's intention and the mouth's execution.
That's a great analogy. So how do you specifically train these two critical components, brain and mouth, to work together like that, like a really well-oiled machine?
Well, one key strategy the sources emphasize is to try and think and speak almost at the same time. Don't wait until you have a perfectly formed, grammatically flawless sentence constructed in your head before you dare to open your mouth. Try to express thoughts as they emerge, even if they feel a bit incomplete or imperfect at first. For example, you see a cat. Instead of thinking, "That is a beautiful black cat," and then saying it, try starting to speak as the thought forms, "Oh, look, cat is," and finish the sentence black and fluffy while you're already speaking. It feels different, but it dramatically reduces hesitation and builds that natural flow. Start by doing this with simple sentences first. Things like, "I like coffee," just to practice connecting the thought and the speech quickly.
That's a huge mental shift from how many of us were probably taught English, which often involved meticulously planning everything before speaking. It sounds quite liberating, actually, to just let it flow a bit more.
It absolutely is. Another technique is to practice thinking aloud more consciously. Just describe your thoughts as they happen, focusing specifically on that link between the thought popping into your head and the words coming out of your mouth. I want to eat something now. Maybe. Maybe a sandwich. Yeah, a sandwich sounds good. And remember those automatic phrases we just talked about. Use them strategically. When you do hesitate, when you're searching for a word, use a known phrase to fill the gap smoothly. Well, let me think. I'm not sure how to say this, but quaz, basically. Quaz. This keeps the conversation moving and buys your brain a split second. Also, train your brain to react faster. Practice responding very quickly to simple, short English questions or statements. Aim to answer in seconds, not minutes. And finally, role-playing is fantastic for this synergy. Pretend you're in common situations, ordering food, asking for directions, talking about your hobbies with someone new. This trains your brain to anticipate typical conversational turns and prepare appropriate responses, and it trains your mouth to say them quickly and naturally under simulated pressure.
So fluency really isn't some kind of instant gift you either have or you don't. It's very much a journey, a skill built by actively combining the thinking, the speaking, the listening, and consistent practice over time.
Exactly. And just like learning to ride a bike, it takes practice. You might wobble, you might fall off, occasionally make mistakes, but with consistent effort, you develop better balance, better speed, more coordination. You'll notice fewer pauses, you'll form sentences faster, your pronunciation will get clearer, and your overall confidence will soar. And always remember, mistakes are not just normal. They are a necessary part of the process. Keep trying, keep learning, and most importantly, keep speaking.
We have covered a lot today, haven't we? Really diving deep into how to unlock English fluency by training both your brain and your mouth. It boils down to consciously choosing to think in English, using tools like graded readers to build that internal language memory, making yourself speak aloud even when you're alone, mastering techniques like shadowing to capture the rhythm of native speakers, and repeating those useful phrases until they become completely second nature. And remember, ultimately, fluency isn't about achieving some mythical state of perfection. It's about clear communication and feeling confident enough to express yourself. Please don't let the fear of making mistakes hold you back from letting your voice be heard. So what does all this actually mean for you as you go about your day, starting right now? Please don't feel overwhelmed by all the different techniques we've discussed. Just pick one, or maybe two, something small you can start doing today. Perhaps you'll try describing simple things around you in English as you walk down the street. Or maybe tonight you'll find a graded reader online and just enjoy a chapter. Perhaps you'll try shadowing a short audio clip for 5 minutes tomorrow morning. Or you'll commit to repeating 5 key phrases until they feel truly automatic by the end of the week. Every single small step you take is a real step towards greater fluency. And consider this. Every single time you consciously choose to think a thought in English or speak even a single English word or phrase out loud, you're not just practicing a language. You're actively, physically rewiring your brain. You're building pathways for a future where English can simply flow from you more effortlessly, more fearlessly, making every conversation, every interaction an act of creative expression. Keep practicing, stay motivated, find joy in the process, and speak confidently. Your English journey is ongoing, and trust us, it's going to be incredibly interesting.